In this video, I'm going to show you how and why you're able to buy cryptocurrency directly from your broker. Okay, so I want to be clear, this is not advice, this is not a recommendation to buy cryptocurrency, but this is a pretty big deal. You see, the SEC just approved the spot Bitcoin ETF. So this means now that it's an ETF, it's going to be regulated just like stocks, mutual funds, options, and other ETFs are. So it falls under the SEC's body of regulatory control. And this opens up the floodgates to more and more things as far as crypto is concerned. The moment that the spot Bitcoin ETF is approved, there are 13 companies already in line with these ETFs ready to go. This means essentially you can instantly buy a Bitcoin ETF directly in your brokerage account. So whether it's Schwab, E-Trade, Fidelity, Webull, Robinhood, you can literally enter in the ticker symbol, enter in the amount of shares, select limit or market order, and hit buy. But before you do that, I would encourage you to look at one thing. Look at the expense ratio or the fee that's charged. Right now, you may see some of these Bitcoin ETFs with a 0% fee or 0% expense ratio, but that may be temporary. Right now, it's technically ranging from about 24 basis points all the way up to 150 basis points, which is pretty high as far as ETFs are concerned. But you're gonna see this competition between these ETFs, and that's gonna drive down the fee. But that, to me, is gonna be the differentiating factor that's gonna determine whether or not you should buy a particular Bitcoin ETF if you're interested. There have been some big name companies that have been in line waiting for all of this to happen. Companies like Fidelity, iShares, WisdomTree, Invesco, and ARK. There's so many other companies that have been in line as well. And this is groundbreaking because when ETF showed up in 1993, that was the first time someone could say, hey, well, I want the S&P 500, but I don't now have to buy all 500 companies to the exact ratio of the S&P 500. All they had to do was buy the SPY S&P 500 ETF by just buying one share of it. And now they have a representative ownership of 500 different companies. And yeah, that's 1% of the actual value of owning all 500 shares of those 500 companies. But it allowed you to have the representation. And that's essentially what Bitcoin ETFs are going to be doing. And it's actually going to set up things for other cryptocurrencies. I believe this is kind of that guinea pig situation where they are setting the ground or laying the groundwork for other cryptocurrencies that are considered valuable. And it makes it easier for the average investor who was a little nervous about crypto to eventually introduce some exposure to crypto by buying something that's regulated now, buying an ETF that represents holding in Bitcoin. As far as the short-term movement of the value of these Bitcoin ETFs, I want you to think of it or relate to it as you would an IPO. An IPO, there's a lot of unknowns in the very beginning, and then as things normalize in the long term, you'll start to see the true value of what it really means in our investment society. So I really think that's going to be the similar case for Bitcoin ETFs. We're going to see, hey, does this set up things for other cryptocurrencies to eventually have their ETFs publicly traded? You know, are those cryptocurrencies as popular or as valuable as Bitcoin in order to have an ETF and have people buy that ETF? We're going to see that, but not in the short term, in my opinion. I think it's going to be more the long term, because what you need to see in order for these type of things to succeed is you need to have institutional investors, you need to have advisors wanting to buy these and invite that exposure into their clients' portfolios, basically. And even average investors like you and me, some of us, we needed to see it be regulated before we would invest. And by it becoming an ETF, now it falls under that regulatory space, and you can easily buy a few shares and expose yourself to that ETF now and to that volatility that cryptocurrency brings. Because at the end of the day, you now can buy it through the ETF. You don't have to go to Coinbase or Binance and get a soft wallet or buy a hard wallet and have to deal with all that comes with buying the cryptocurrency or the Bitcoin directly by itself. You can just log into your usual brokerage account, hit buy or hit sell if you want to get rid of it. But again, I think the biggest thing is to just be mindful of the fees or the expense ratios. And I'd love to hear from you. What are you going to do? Does this new Bitcoin ETF space, does that mean you're going to go in and buy, or you're going to wait a little bit, or you're just not interested at all? There's still a lot of people that think that cryptocurrencies are not worth anything because they're just essentially a bunch of code and there's no assets behind it. But there is a larger part of society where they feel like now this is their opportunity to buy some investment and it's not quite overvalued, or they don't feel like they're buying a stock that's overpriced. They may believe like this is their time to get in on something, and now it's within their brokerage account, not just part of a completely different currency space. So I'd love to know what you plan on doing. And if you have trouble trying to place trades, if you have a Schwab account, feel free to watch my next video. And until next time, stay present.